are on. Give me one sec. Yes. It's loading. Still loading. Okay, declare the meeting open at 3:08 p.m. Yes. Well, we're getting feedback some.
That's what you sound like.
Apologies. So no apologies have been received for this meeting. Apologies have been received from Councillor Ben Dudman, leave of absence, and Councillor Deborah White, who has resigned due to personal reasons. So the TEC will conduct a recount for the vacant position. We should know by the 28th or 29th of this month on a new councillor. Acknowledgement of country. I begin today by acknowledging the Palatour and Panniers past people, the traditional owners and custodians of the land in which we gather today. And I pay my respects to all past and present. I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Moving on to confirmation of the minutes, which is on page 8 of our agenda. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Councillor Loader, thank you. Second, please, Councillor Smedley, thank you. Any discussion on the minutes, councillors? If not, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hands. That is unanimous. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest from councillors, General Manager?
No, there's no declarations at this point of the meeting, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to page 9 of the council workshop report. Council's last met for the workshop on 17th of December 2024. The report is included in the agenda. Mayor and councillor reports are on page 10 and 11. Are there any other councillor announcements to add? Councillor Loader.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to congratulate the Carrick Hall Committee and the Parkham Community Committee on the Festival of Small Halls that both groups put on over the last couple of weeks. They were absolutely fantastic. The barbecues were great, the music was great, and it was really fantastic to see the communities using these really, really precious community resources in such a lovely way. So congratulations to them.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I also attended the Carrick Festival of Small Halls, just noting on January the 3rd. I'd like to echo Councillor Loader's comments. First of all, the festival itself is fantastic, and it's just such a wonderful thing to have it in our community, and I hope it continues. But I think it also really highlights the impact that the small halls have in our community, and most importantly, all the volunteer hours that go into keeping those going. We would be much poorer without them. So I just want to give a shout out to all those people that donate so much of their time to keep those halls doing what they do best.
Thanks, Councillor House. Councillor Cameron.
Just to follow on from that, I was also lucky enough to attend the Carrick event, and just want to congratulate Councillor House, who was the MC of the evening, and I think he did a fantastic job. Really spoke very well about the community and the good work that Councillor Loader says at the Carrick Hall. I wasn't able to attend Parkham, but I hear the barbecue was exceptional. So just want to thank those on council and the staff that are involved in helping out with that, because they were great events and we should feel really proud about having those in our community.
Yeah, ditto to all those comments. Having attended both Carrick and Parkham, they were brilliant events, and all proud of how it all went off swimmingly, and to future ones around our municipality will be great.
Thanks, Councillor. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Deb White for her contribution, even though it wasn't for a long time this term around. Councillor White had been a councillor for a while prior to this term, and we certainly wish her the best going forward. So thank you. Anything else, councillors? If not, moving on to petitions on page 12. No petitions were received for this meeting. Are there any petitions from the gallery? No. Community representations, phase 12. No community representations were received for this meeting. Are there any from the gallery? Yes, sorry.
Separate to questions on
Yes,
the.
it is separate question. Thank you. We're actually moving to public question time now. So public questions, we've noticed there are questions in the agenda which have been answered, and we move into public question time. So public question time, I'll allow 2 questions per person for a time limit of 3 minutes. I will ring the bell at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So if you wonder why I'm playing with my phone, it's actually because the timer is on my phone. So we'll do that. So we'll head into public question time. So if anybody has a question to ask, please take the microphone and state your name, please. And give you any questions.
Can I go first?
You can go first, ex-councillor King.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tanya King and I live in Westbury. I did submit 2 questions we've noticed for today's agenda that have been asked and somewhat answered in the agenda. I do have a following question on reading the agenda for Tuesday's meeting. I thank Director Polframan for her response. Though as a resident living amongst the rapid increase of development, the numbers feel somewhat conservative. I'm not satisfied that Director Davies has answered my question. For clarity, I wish to know what infrastructure improvements have been made commensurate with development as a result of subdivisions since the inception of the specific area plan in Westbury.
Thank you. General Manager.
I'll take the question, Mayor. Let's try to find the date. So we referred to, Tanya has questions. They're stated in the public agenda on page 15 there. Okay, so they're the original questions that were asked with notice for the meeting, and they refer to the Tasmanian Planning Scheme state planning provisions and the Meander Valley Local Provision Schedule, which came into operation in April 2021. So in answering the question, rates, so council rates, the rates that we charge to property owners, they're not a fee for service. So they're not the same as a dog registration where you pay your registration fee and it entitles you to the dog being registered, but rather they are a property tax. So they take into account property owners' capacity to pay. So subdivisions don't automatically mean that there is more rates that are generated. Often it does, but what the process is a property may be revalued by the Office of the Valuer General, the state government department, and they can elect to increase a property's value based on development that occurs. So just because a subdivision occurs doesn't necessarily mean that there is an additional rates revenue. So if we're asking for a dollar value that relates to the 56 additional lots, 30 titles that have been created, we won't be providing a dollar value for today. So, but I just say that because it's not as simple as saying there was a new property and it gave us $1,000 rates and we're going to do $1,000 worth of work outside property. So, however, since 2021, additional people to the area. It's great to see Westbury growing. It brings new families. I mean, new housing brings new families to our area, which is great to see. And I guess as a our councillors make decisions annually around what capital works are required in a township such as Westbury on the basis of new housing that has been developed. So examples of things like the new concrete footpath that's just been completed on William Street, between William Street and the Bass Highway there. There's another one up William Street last year as well. We're looking at opening a new dog run facility on Moore Street in Westbury as well. So these sorts of things are all the weight for developing new infrastructure is provided by the fact that we have new dwellings coming on board. So I don't have a dollar value for you because it's not that straightforward.
Thank you, General Manager. I did make an attempt to clarify my question in asking what infrastructure improvements have been made commensurate with the development. Might I suggest that the answer to that question is 0 or nothing?
Statement or a question?
I'm just asking, may I suggest that the answer to that question might be 0 or nothing?
Thank you. Thanks, Tanya. Any other questions? Yep.
My name is Danielle Farrow-Clark-Mills, and I would like to begin by acknowledging the actual owners of this land. I somewhat resent your previous statement about bringing more families to the area. I'm a single woman at 54 with 3 children on the North Island. I'm able to afford to live there myself on a pension. And how cutesy that Donald Trump, who screwed us a porn star, got elected on Family Values tradition platform today. His inaugural speech, so family schmamily. How about just people? How about that? My question on notice, and 2 of them, would be, in a national, and these are directed to Wade Haitley.
You're actually addressing the council here, so they're directed to
So
us.
Wade Haitley, just for the record, all you people over there on YouTube. Wade Haitley is the Meander Valley Council Compliance Officer. And so is Councillor Paul Freeman. Is she available? You managed not to be here either?
Questions to the council, thanks.
Huge. Well, both of them turned up on Monday, the 23rd of September at my home with 2 serving police officers of the Tasmanian Constabulary for an inspection of a 30-year-old granny flat out the back of my property. Previous to them turning up, they had notified me in writing, they being Wade. He didn't ask, he told me that he was going to turn up in 1 week's time, 1 week with the police for an inspection of my cabin. Fancy my surprise when I was instructed that he was going to turn up, not inquired about whether I was going to be present at the time or not. Nonetheless, you can just Google it. Monday, the 23rd of September 2024 was the beginning of the New South Wales school holidays, and I had accommodation to be near my 12-year-old daughter, who's about to be 13, stolen by her father for the last 4 years, causing me a disability support pension with several nervous breakdowns, having abused me first. And I had instructed Councillor Wade Haitley that I was not going to be there. So imagine my surprise when he and 2 coppers and Councillor Paul Freeman wasted Meander Valley taxpayer money and Tasmanian police money by turning up with the police to inspect the cabin that's been there for 25 or 30 years, and told me that it was my problem that your council hadn't noticed it in the last 30 years. That's the first question. So the question is, why would you waste taxpayer funds for the Tasmanian Police Service with 2 serving officers and your own 2 serving council members, being Paul Freeman and Haitley for the record once again, by intimidating me on a day in which I specifically said I was not going to be there, and the only reason I was there was that the ticket prices were so high on Jetstar and aeroplane flights that I could not literally afford to go and see my own children.
Daniel,
So why did you waste your resources?
your 3 minutes is up. You asked one
No, that's the
question.
one question.
Quickly wrap up your second question, thank you. 3 minutes are up.
Well, you can answer the first one.
Well, have you got a second question to answer, to ask, sorry?
Why don't we focus?
Pardon?
Why don't we focus on the answer to the question?
What's the question, Jen? Take that on. I'll answer the question.
So, that's right. So our officers, so council's employees undertake compliance activities whether
Specifically the question was, why did you turn up on a day when I told you I wasn't going to be there?
Sorry, I'm trying to answer the question.
No, that's
Question is-
no, don't preamble me with rubbish we all know. Don't waste our time.
You've got one more question if you wanted to answer, or that's it.
No, don't waste the time with the preamble. I know what was written. I said I wasn't going to be there. So why did you turn up when I said I wasn't going to be there with the police?
I'll give you a chance to ask a second question if you so wish.
I need your chance, you're obliged, but I can write to the Minister
We've
of
just
Council
tried to
of
answer that
Australia.
question for you and you're arguing from.
It's just not an answer, it's a cutting to the chase, so cut to the chase, answer the question.
So we're not in a debate, sorry. You've asked the question.
Hey, I'm instructing you to be
No.
efficacious.
Right. Chairing the meeting.
Efficacious.
Well, that's fine. Can you please hand the microphone to somebody else to make?
No, because I have a second question on notice. What is Meander Valley Council doing in the context of a very well-known national housing crisis, in which the most extensive and comprehensive and significant growing cohort are women in their 50s, like me, sleeping in their cars, some of them younger sleeping with children, risking being attacked, risking being harassed by police for welfare checks in case they've topped themselves, otherwise known as suicide. Why and what is Meander Valley? You're talking, so I'll stop.
No, that's fine. We'll take that question on notice.
It's already on notice.
Well, so
It's on the email.
Okay, we'll answer that at the next.
What is Meander Valley Council proactively doing in a context which is widely known of a national housing crisis to open up accommodation such as granny flats that have been long established, especially when Richard Dunlop and Kylie Elkington on West Barrack Street have had their granny flat shut down due to, get this, the wrong type of concrete on the floor, as if they were going to be welding or jacking up a car. Don't Danielle me, I'm Ms. Farrow.
I will suspend.
Don't Danielle me, I'm
the
Ms.
meeting
Farrow.
if you continue on. I will.
No, you're councillor, whoever you are, and I'm Ms. Farrow Price, so don't.
Sorry, Ms.
Danielle
Farrow
me,
Price,
I'm
I will
my mother.
cancel the meeting
Good,
if
so
you do not.
treat me with respect, I'm Ms. Farrow Price, I'm an elder.
Right.
I'm 54.
Okay, we will take that question on notice. We will answer the next council meeting.
No, because I actually emailed it to you last week, so I'd like an answer now.
No.
And I've actually, I emailed Wade Hayden 3 months ago.
Sorry, we will take that question on notice. That's the
Well,
process that we're going.
Yeah, front foot, girls and boys, it's a national housing crisis, you don't want to be seen to be shutting down perfectly good accommodation.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the gallery? Because there's no? Okay. Thank you. The questions are asked. So for those asked questions today, could you email a written copy of questions to ogm@nbc.tas.gov.au by tomorrow morning? If you've got handwritten questions, you'll find a clipboard with forms and pens in reception. Thank you. Moving on to councillor question time, which is on page 17. We have councillor questions with notice. We have no questions with notice. Councillor questions without notice. Are there any councillor questions without notice from councillors? Councillor Temple.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 8 years ago, I moved a motion, as I recall, concerning the then inauguration of President Trump. That motion was lost. 4 years ago, I did the same thing with basically the same wording with President Biden. So I do this again. The main point of it is that I believe that we are heavily reliant on the goodwill of the Oval Office here in the Meander Valley for our security. So I'll say this again, I'll read it again, and I've just transferred the name of the new incumbent for the one recently departed. And what I said last time was in recognition of Donald J. Trump being inaugurated as the 47th President of the United States of America, and hence perceived by many as the leader of the free world. And as he is likely to be the greatest agent for change, will Meander Valley Council this Tuesday, as an urgent item, consider naming a suitable landmark within the Meander Valley in his office, in his honour, and wish him well for his term of leadership. In considering this question today, it should be remembered that the Meander Valley relies largely on the goodwill of the Oval Office for its security, and in considering this matter today, we can be amongst the first in the world to confer such an honour.
Thanks, councillor Temple. Any councillors wish to comment on the question? No. We'll take that question without notice, councillor Temple.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor notices of motion, page 17. There were none received for the agenda. Are there any notices of motion from councillors? Take that as no. Okay, so excuse me while I get my computer up and going. That's 19, yeah, no. Which looks like right. So we move on to planning authority reports. So planning matters, council acts as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. There's a list that follows that statement. So we're moving on to PA 25-0046 258 Jones Street. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Cameron, that's a mover. Second, councillor Loader, thank you. Councillor Cameron has moved the motion.
Thank you. I just want to start by thanking the people that took the time to write in their representations, and also former Councillor King for coming along. It's lovely to see your face in the gallery behind that chair. Suits you very well in here in this chamber. But thank you very much for your questions. Look, we talk about planning in Westbury and also Carrick often. I'm not sure if we've got it right. Actually, I'm sure we don't have it right. Do understand your concerns and taking a drive along that road on the way here today. It only emphasises the concerns I probably share with some of my other councillors. Did have a question. There was a comment made in the pre-meeting around how that road is assessed for traffic. I don't know who wants to answer it, if Tash at the end does, but it might be beneficial just for those listening along today. Because I have concerns around those driveways as well, but some of the explanation we'll provide in the pre-meeting was helpful for me, and I wonder if we might be able to discuss that again now. Is that okay?
Would you like to clarify that as in the road movements?
Yeah, the road, the
movements?
U3, the 30 to 100 traffic business.
So I think, Tash, the question may be at what stage does a road get upgraded to the next level, or how many vehicle movements per day that is?
So I'll have a bit of a start, and perhaps team lead engineering or the director of infrastructure services can contribute. So,
excuse me. Sorry. Do we have a representation to speak to this matter, and at what point would they get that opportunity?
Not on my list, there isn't a.
I did speak to you personally about it.
That's my apologies, councillor. I will actually, sorry, Tanya. I will let you actually make a statement before we actually go into that. My apologies. If you'd like to make a representation.
Thank you.
Right. You did personally speak to me, but I was thinking of other things. Just hold that thought.
Don't start time yet.
Oh, I hadn't started.
Thank you. In November of 2023, I asked questions of council regarding sealing of gravel roads that were answered by Director DePaul at the time, and followed up with Councillor Ben Dugman requesting that Jones Street South and South Street in Westbury be considered for sealing. The response to my question from Director DePaul then also revealed that no consideration had been given to sealing gravel roads in Westbury since 2018. I refer to the agenda of the ordinary meeting of council on the 11th of June 24, page 390, Capital Works Program, Road, Streets and Bridges, not one gravel road in Westbury is scheduled for sealing. The very same agenda on page 391, road resurfacing, seems to only cover renewals rather than upgrades. I'm of the understanding that despite Councillor Dugman advocating for this work to be included, it wasn't adopted. The information in the agenda states concerns relating to an increase in dust as a result of additional traffic movements are not issues that are considered by the planning scheme. This may be so, but councillors, you have the capacity to consider these issues, and to date I see no evidence that adequate consideration has been made, and I think it's time it was. The information also states that requests for sealing existing gravel roads can be made to the council for consideration in future capital works programs. Well, they have been and have fallen on deaf ears to date. Councillors, can you please give this some serious consideration? As an aside, your document also states it's acknowledged that some recent drainage work has been carried out in the area, by council's workforce and additional work has been programmed to address the ponding issues. I also hope that it's been learned that stormwater does not run uphill of its own accord, and that the future proposed draining works in response to the subdivision will address this. Also, in your agenda, regarding the matters raised about dust, residents on rainwater tanks should be undertaking routine maintenance of their tanks to maintain the safety of their water supply. Measures such as fitting first flush diverters to downpipes and periodically vacuum any accumulated sediment from the bottom of the tank will generally take care of any sediment issues from dust if experienced. Well, I thank council for their advice on how to manage rainwater storage. I've been doing it for some time. However, when an authority approves development that changes a situation or circumstance, surely they are also responsible for taking their own measures to limit the effect on existing landowners, residents and ratepayers. Continued development in Westbury with no upgrading of infrastructure is simply not acceptable, and I sincerely hope that council will do the right thing and instigate sealing of gravel roads that intensify the number of driveway crossovers and traffic movements to such a high volume that compromises the standard of living of existing residents. Perhaps council can consider spending some of the $1.865 million allocated to road resurfacing to the sealing of gravel roads impacted by subdivisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. My apologies for missing that on the phone. What's not written in front of me, so that's my apologies there.
Apology accepted.
Thank you. You finished, Councillor Cameron?
Yeah,
So,
I guess,
Councillor Lader?
okay, thank you for that. I told you she was good, so there you go, she was good. So thank you, Councillor King. Oh, former Councillor King, sorry. I love it when you're Councillor King. I really just follow up on that. The conversation we were having was around what the amount of traffic on the road which would require the road to be upgraded. But I think Councillor King is, oh God, I can't stop doing it now. Former Councillor King is referring to the fact that even though it may not need to technically be upgraded, will we and should we look at that in a future capital works program? So that's really not a question anymore, it's just a statement. Thank you.
General Manager?
Yeah, so that's correct. It sort of shouldn't reflect upon the planning decision that's before us today. So the applicant has submitted a traffic impact assessment, which our engineering department has received, and reviewed, obviously, of the opinion that the additional crossovers that would be created by the subdivision and the additional vehicle traffic can be accommodated on the existing unsealed traffic road, which we also sought advice around the unsealed road and the potential impact on rainwater tanks. And our advice was that the condition would be appropriate for the decision that's come before council today. So I guess the other point that you have made there, Deputy Mayor, around capital works and any additional road works in the future on this unsealed road in Westbury, that will be a decision of council. I guess council has actually considered this section of road previously and decided not to undertake a sealing of this unsealed road, and council again will likely to consider that in the future. So which is also the case with a number of other unsealed roads outside of the town centre of Westbury. It's quite common, in fact, for those unsealed section of roads based on the low volume of traffic that is currently experienced. That may change in the future, and then council's position may change also. But perhaps if the team lead of engineering or the director wanted to contribute anything further, I'm happy.
But before we go, that would be the second of the motion, I think. Councillor Lader.
I confused everybody.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Tanya, for your comments. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We're going to put subdivisions in. We need to put the infrastructure in at the same time. But the Act says that that's not what we have to do. And so to me, the Act is not logical. I went for a drive up there on Sunday, and as I was driving up, someone was driving down, dust, and then I did Yui and came back. Someone else came up, more dust. So I totally understand where you're coming from. An extra 6 lots, while they fit and they're large, and I believe under the current scheme they can't be subdivided any further, it's going to change what that area is like. It's a lovely quiet area. You know, we move to places because we have an affinity with them. We like them. We say this is going to be home, and then something else happens and it changes. I totally feel for you. I really do. But as it stands, dust is not a consideration. The other thing, and in the pre-meeting, as Deputy Mayor Cameron said, we did have a discussion about the roads, because when I was driving down and the other car was driving up, we both had to go into the gutter. And that's reality. So the report can say the road's okay and we have to go with expert advice, but the reality is it's maybe not really that okay from a practical lived experience. So I would have been way more comfortable if this was 3 lots, not 6. But the scheme allows for 6, and as a planning authority, I'm left with no choice but to vote with the recommendation, and for that, I apologise.
Thank you. Open up for discussion, councillors. No, you should know as a former councillor.
We'll keep calling it councillor for today.
Okay, open up for discussion, councillors.
Thank you.
Councillor Tinfield.
Yes, I guess the first one's a question on page 46. Under the quarter of the way down, that has a scheme standard 7.10.2, and it says an application must only be approved under subclause 7.10.1 if there is no unreasonable detrimental impact on adjoining uses or the amenity of the surrounding area. Further down the page, last 3 and 4th and 3rd last line says, dust concerns as a result of the use of the road is not a matter that can be considered as part of this application. So I guess my question is, how broadly do you interpret, and I'm assuming it must be being interpreted in a manner that there is no connection between the dust issue by having more vehicles drive up and down the road, which are in fact accessing those driveways, crossovers, etc., the 6 or 5 additional ones proposed. Why is there a disconnect between unreasonable detrimental impact and the dust issue? Thank you.
Dr. Sharptash. That is Tom.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in relation to clause 7.10.1 and the unreasonable detrimental impact on adjoining uses or the amenity of surrounding land, we have to have a look at what the application is applying for. So the application is for a subdivision which is requiring 6 accesses onto Jones Street South. It's not actually seeking approval for the use of Jones Street South. So to be able to compartmentalise the use of the road, anybody is able to use a road maintained by the public. So we can't control who is using that road. So any member of the public can go and use that road without any concern. So in that regard, we are only looking at the additional accesses onto that road and the volume of traffic that is going to be generated by those 6 additional residents. The actual construction of the road being gravel in nature and the perceived dust, and I say perceived because there hasn't been any studies undertaken or evidence gained to determine the level of dust that is being generated. So in that regard, in terms of this particular impact, we have sought advice from our solicitor in relation to this point, and it is in their view that we cannot consider the usage of the road and the potential dust generated from that usage as a result of the subdivision in terms of that consideration. So really, is the subdivision itself going to cause an unreasonable loss of amenity in terms of the creation of new lots? And the answer and my opinion on that is no.
Councillor Temple.
After listening to the previous speakers, Mr Mayor, I'm sort of left wondering if we're really saying we need a lot more development down there, so it justifies a road, a sealed road. So I'd ask a question. What would trigger the construction of a sealed road?
I'll look for a director to answer
Well, our council hasn't established a standard that we would require, council, so we could, yes, we could workshop and form a policy position for ourselves that we felt appropriate, because I guess each council area is probably different, different geographical limitations and different weather patterns and that sort of thing, but perhaps engineering, if there's anything particularly contribute. Oh, so there'll be Australian standards as well with volumes.
Yeah, just through Chair, with the road, there's no traffic volumes that trigger the need to seal the road, so it's more around geometric changes. So if the traffic volume was to go over a certain threshold, it would be that the road would be widened to see that. So it's, as the General Manager said, it's really a decision of council around livability and those types of considerations and durability.
Follow-up question, councillor.
If I may. So it's a question of widening the road, not sealing it, is what I understood from that answer. So, does it mean if there were another six blocks subdivided, or would it be 30 subdivided? What in the past we've sealed roads. So what triggers the sealing of this road? I'm sorry to sound like an idiot, but there has to be something that in the past has triggered this, not just a whim of council.
Yeah, well, perhaps they were individual decisions of council of the day, Councillor Temple. So, and I guess it's council that is establishing the standard it expects from development. So at the moment, we have sealed sections within the town boundary of Westbury, and we have unsealed sections that are outside of that, but there's nothing precluding ourselves, if we were in a financial position to do so, to establish a higher standard, if that would be our choice. But as I said, it's probably, from a consistency perspective, it's probably coming to agreement on what that standard should be for various townships and areas of our municipality, given we're a large area. And formalising that through a policy if that was to be of interest to all councillors.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Discussion?
Comments, if I may. I could ask it as a question, but I don't think I will. It says on page 30 that the increased density for the proposed development, so that's just the subdivision, says that it may well help to justify a speed reduction to 50 kilometres an hour, and that preliminary discussions with the Department of State Growth are indicating that that may occur, which of course slower vehicles go, then there may be less dust, but in my view, a poor answer to the question. Basically, my comment is I can't support this application for 5 additional lots, making 6 in total with the current house. If it had, as Councillor Loader has alluded to earlier, if it had been for 3, then I may have done. I find it curious that the notion in the scheme and especially the specific area plan for the maintaining of the strong grid pattern of development, in my view, is just not being adhered to. And we're basically the horse is bolted, I think, in terms of the fact that significantly in the southern side of Westbury, the houses were close to the road for all sorts of reasons, and we're now departing from that by the application of many battle axe blocks. We're now sticking houses in behind houses, and to me that hasn't maintained that strong character, and especially in the previous scheme we referred to the hawthorn hedge pattern as well. I think we're getting poor outcomes, and in my view, there is grounds to support some subdivision, but not as proposed. And so for me, people on the existing road network, they had a house, they had a long distance view to the house in the next street or their backyard. This is changing. It's just making it like suburbia, and there are lots of other things to consider, as former Councillor King has alluded to before, in terms of the quiet amenity of the area, in terms of people with horses and the like. It's taking it beyond that, and I can't support it.
Councillor, just you've indicated council support, you're showing an alternative motion.
No.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I will be supporting it, but first of all, can I again thank those people that made the representations, in particular the passion with former Councillor King. I lived on a gravel road for a number of years. I know that it can be problematic. I believe that the questions that have been asked here have been appropriately dealt with and answered, so I will be supporting it. However, I do empathise and sympathise with the issue. I'm really keen to have further discussion, maybe at workshop level, in relation to this matter. Not just in this road, but there are other roads around where dust is becoming problematic. And I would like to see us review some of these upgrades in the not too distant future to try and ease some of those issues. I would love to see that area, as you alluded to, Councillor Loader, I would love to see that area not be as dusty, whether it be sealed or some other way of minimising the dust, whether that be lessening the speed limit or whatever. So I do have sympathy for your position. However, be that as it may, I believe it does meet all the criteria, and therefore I will be supporting it.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other discussion, councillors? No?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to point out that, I feel there's an inconsistency here. We're resurfacing Taylor Street at the moment, so it is a gravel road, and we're running water trucks up and down to suppress the dust, which is fair enough. But here we are, a couple of kilometres or 1.5 kilometres to the south, we're increasing the dust but doing nothing about it. There's an incongruity there to my mind.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, I suppose the Taylor Street example is a sealed road within the town boundary that is being resealed. So it's a sealed road being resealed. So it's probably a slightly different example. The subdivision that is before you today for decision doesn't automatically guarantee that there are going to be additional dwellings. I guess it's implied. However, the decision that's being made is a subdivision, and so the additional vehicle traffic that's potential from the subdivision isn't guaranteed, I suppose, Councillor. And the decision on the associated infrastructure, be it road, roadside drainage, stormwater, those sorts of things have come into play. But the advice is that they are to be considered from the planning decision that's before you. So I don't know if that helps or not.
Okay. Moving on to wrap up, Councillor Loader, the second of the motion. Councillor Cameron has moved the motion.
Thank you. Yes, so I think from this we've established that the road movements would need to be ridiculously significantly higher to allow an upgrade, which wouldn't solve the problem of the ceiling. But I think what Tanya was really requesting from us is she understands the planning scheme obviously very well from her previous involvement and knows the position we're in, but I think she is looking for a commitment from us as councillors to make a serious commitment to look at resealing gravel roads in and around Westbury as part of an upcoming capital works project, which we will be discussing capital works at a future workshop soon. So I think that most councillors would agree that we will be having this conversation again soon.
Thanks, Councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand. Johnson, Cameron, Smedley, Loader, House against. Syndrome and Temple, thank you, motion is passed. Council no longer acts as a planning authority. Moving on to page 134, Development and Regulatory Services. So those that want to leave can do so. Thanks, Tanya, for your time. I'd like a mover and a seconder for this motion, please. Councillor House is a mover. Seconder, thank you. Councillor Loader, thank you. Councillor House is the mover of the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. It appears to me to just be a fairly minor boundary adjustment. It doesn't seem to have any financial impost on Meander Valley Council or ratepayers, and it just seems to be a logical adjustment. So I'd urge councillors to vote in favour of it.
Thank you, Councillor Loader, is the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I agree. It seems like a logical thing to do for these particular land holders, and I note that they're the ones that have initiated it, I believe. Yes, they've initiated it, and it's good that council can oblige and make life a little simpler for them.
Thank you. Open up for discussion, councillors. No discussion, no questions. Councillor Sinfield, sorry.
Just one very minor question. Have no issue with doing what we're doing, but are we going in the process going to clarify the address? i.e. the reference to Travellers Rest and twice, and have that corrected, since we do that for lots of other things like the just mentioned South Jones Street, etc., the missing links. It would be good to have proper addresses for emergency services.
For you, Mr Mayor, yes, we'll be looking to correct these.
Do you have other questions, councillors? No? Anything to add, Councillor Loader? Councillor House, anything to add? No, okay. Put the motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hand. That's unanimous, thank you. Now the valley just got slightly bigger.
Launceston slightly smaller.
Launceston slightly smaller. Page 147, Corporate Services. We'd like to move, so I'd like to second Councillor Cameron. Second, I think Councillor Loader, thank you. Councillor Cameron has moved the motion.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, we've workshopped this item quite a few times now, and we've discussed that we all do have different needs and experiences, but I think we're really implementing this policy to ensure that our staff feel supported and empowered with their roles, and doing that while continuing to provide an excellent service to our community. We are committed to working diligently to meet the needs of our community. However, we do need to establish clear guidelines and processes to address situations where behaviour does not meet our established standards of respect and professionalism. This policy aims to strike a balance between acknowledging the importance of customer service and upholding a respecting and professional environment for our staff to operate in. So I'm very happy to support this.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Loader has seconded the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, agreed. We have workshopped this a couple of times. I had some pretty big concerns about it. I have been concerned that often when people come to council with an issue, it's because something really bad is happening. You know, their house is flooded, their dogs run away, I don't know, something bad. And people, when they're under duress, don't always act in a calm and reasonable manner. But having said that, there is absolutely no excuse for anybody to abuse the staff here. There is no excuse for people not to be kind and polite and reasonable. I am more comfortable with this policy after looking at what customers can do if they don't agree with how they're being dealt with. And that's good. So I will be supporting it, but only after we've had so much time looking at it, and the fact that everybody's got the right of reply if they're not happy with how council has treated them.
Thanks, Councillor. Open up for discussion, councillors. Councillor House.
Thank you again, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I agree with all those comments. You know, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need to have a policy like this. In a perfect world, we probably wouldn't even need to discuss it, but we're not in a perfect world. And as I said in the pre-meeting, you know, just recently I went to get my car serviced and you know, the message bank says treat our people with respect. I did a similar thing recently with a medical centre. I had to make an appointment. Please treat our people with respect. That's what we're doing here. We have a responsibility as a council to make sure our people are neither bullied or harassed or go home in tears or any of those things that unfortunately can happen. And again, as the role as PCBU, we've got an obligation as council to ensure that our staff are supported. I agree that we've had to workshop it and go through a few fine tuning points to make it more palatable perhaps, and perhaps make it a little clearer. But I congratulate Craig for putting this together and everyone else, and I support it 110%.
Thanks, councillor. Yeah, I'd like to say we have a duty of care to our staff, we have a duty of care to residents and ratepayers, and with these guidelines in place, then no one can go off on the wrong track, in my view. So I'm happy to support it as well. Any other discussion, councillors? That's it.
Yes, I won't be supporting it at the moment. Fully supportive of supporting our staff, but I think we're heading down a path of codifying everything to an inch of its life, potentially weaponising things. And the real problem I have today is we have 3 policies that sort of go to how we all interact with each other, one on councillor behaviour, this one, and the customer charter. What I find is the customer charter is, in a sense, simplified and generalised, and then these other 2, the councillor one and this one, have just, as I say, refined it to an inch of its life, and I just think that's the wrong approach and needs more work. The other thing is, I note that in the very near future we'll be workshopping the councillor one anyway, and I mean the very near future, and the government is working through some issues with legislating on councillor conduct. So I know this, we're talking about one particular item here, but in my view, it goes to equity and how we perceive and interact in both directions and in all directions. And we should be nice to each other. And absolutely, we need to do whatever to support our staff. And we also need to be mindful that we're providing a public service to our community. So at the moment, I'm unable to support this motion.
Thanks, councillor. Any other discussion, councillors? If not, councillor Loader is the seconder. Councillor Cameron is the mover. Nothing to add. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hand. Johnson, Cameron, Smedley, Temple, Loader, House against. Councillor Sindhu. Motion is passed. Page 167, 14.2, review of customer service charter. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Councillor Cameron, thank you. Second out. Councillor Loader, thank you. Councillor Cameron is the mover of the motion.
Yeah, really happy to support this. I think it is a well put together, clear, and as Councillor Loader calls it, what's your plain English? That's it. Love it. I do like it actually. I like the new branding, and I appreciate all the information there in one spot. So thank you for that.
Thanks, councillor. Councillor Loader, the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm very pleased to see that there's a little bit of white space there, that some of the language has been made a little simpler, the layout's been changed a little bit since the first draft. And I want to acknowledge that doing things like this is not easy. In fact, at work today, even though I work in adult literacy and try to use plain English all the time, I've had to go through and edit somebody else's documents. It's not an easy thing to do. So thank you to the staff who worked so diligently on this to make sure that this document really outlines our customer service charter and what customers can expect and how to go about making a complaint should they ever need to do so. So thank you.
Thanks, councillor. Open up for discussion, councillors. Questions? That there are none. Anything further to add to the second, councillor Cameron? And
No, just
put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hands. That's Johnson, Cameron, Smedley, Loader, House against. Councillor Sindhu, thank you. And moving over to audit panel, page 171. Audit panel minutes. Good timing up the end there.
Perfect.
The mover, councillor Temple, thank you. Seconder, councillor House, thank you. Councillor Temple was the mover of the motion.
Yes, I'd just like to, yes. Thank you. I'd just like to say that Mr. Gray and Mr. Clark provide excellent value to council. They're very thorough and great value to council. Councillor Dudman also is thorough, but looking at it from council point of view, of course, and our staff, they answer every question fully. I've got great confidence in the process.
Thanks, councillor Temple. Councillor House.
Mr. Mayor, can I again thank councillors Dudman and Temple for being on that committee. I was on that committee for some time, and it gave me an insight into how much work goes into it by a lot of people behind the scenes as well. And I came away from that committee feeling very satisfied, and I think ratepayers should be too, that we've got really strong checks and balances in place, that everything is, I wouldn't say audited within an inch of its life, but everything, every policy, every income and expense is gone through with a fine tooth comb. And I think we can all feel much more satisfied for having that committee on board. So thank you for those involved.
Councillor, open up for discussion, councillors, questions. If there is no anything to add, councillor House, as the seconder, councillor Temple, no, thank you for the motion. All those in favour say aye, raise your hands. That are unanimous, thank you. Page 189, financial report to 31st December 2024. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Don't rush. Who'd like to move, somebody like to second. Cameron, Medley. Councillor Cameron, any add?
Just to thank Justin for all of the work he puts into this. It's always clear and easy to understand for councillors and anyone reading along at home. So thank you very much, but I don't really have any great questions from it.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley, any that? No. Open up for discussion, councillors. No. I'll reiterate what Councillor Cameron, Deputy Mayor, said. Justin and the team, thank you. You do a good job putting it in plain English for us to understand. So obviously you don't get hardly any questions at any stage, so you must be doing a good job of answering questions as we go. Anything else, councillors? If not, Councillor Smedley, nothing to add. Councillor Cameron, no. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye, raise your hand. Or just raise your hand as you are doing. Yeah, unanimous. Governance and Community Wellbeing, page 210. Annual plan, Q2 performance. I'm pleased to get there before I. That's a second mover and a seconder. Councillor House is a mover. Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Cameron, thank you. Yeah. Councillor House is a mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's always good when we look at these to just see how much work is getting done and how I think how dedicated all the team is to getting these projects done in a timely fashion. Those that haven't been achieved are progressing, or those that haven't been deferred, and I think there's a good explanation around each. So again, it gives us a really good snapshot of where we're at. I looked through it and I couldn't see anything that caused me any alarm whatsoever. So again, just full credit to all the team. And I'm just going to say on a bit of a personal note, where I live in Prospect, I see the works team in particular working along, and man, do they work. You know, and they're just going flat out all the time. I don't say that for any other reason. That is the truth. I had a chance to chat to a few of them. I think it's just something we should be proud of, the fact that the council, people that I see anyway, work so hard and they're so diligent. So I think this is just a reflection of that. So good on them.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cameron, and the second motion.
Just to reiterate what Councillor House says, you know, we go through that list and so many are achieved or progressing. There's only a few there that are just deferred or not in this target quarter, and there's always explanations. So again, yeah, hats off to our legendary staff for working so hard all the time to put those boxes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Councillor Loader?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I agree with all the comments that have been made. I was particularly excited to read about the finalising of the community strategic plan. I know we all know it, we've seen it, but to actually see it written there as achieved, what a huge thing, where we had, 3 different community consultations, one with staff, and the fact that that's all come together in that amazing document with so much community input is just, it's joyous, really. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other discussion, councillors? No, anything to add, councillor Cameron?
No.
Councillor House? No. Put the motion, all those in favour, please say aye, raise your hands. That's unanimous. You're not saying aye these days, you're just raising your hands, but anyway. All right, moving along on page 223, which is the annual general meeting report. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second?
I can move it, but I wasn't there. So.
Councillor Loader, thank you. Second up, Councillor Smedley. Councillor Loader has moved the motion.
Don't really have anything to add other than what's there. It's always good to reflect on the year that was. So it's happy to recommend it to my councillor colleagues.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley, nothing to add. Open up for discussion or questions, councillors. No, take that as a given. Right, put the motion and all those in favour, please say aye, raise your hands. It's unanimous again, thank you. Page 312, annual general meeting, public notice without motion consideration. I'd like to move, somebody like to second. Sorry, page 312. Wait please to get there. I'm just waiting for everyone to get there. Cool, that's all. Everyone on page? Yep. Move for the motion, please.
Let someone else have a turn, mate.
We'd like to move.
I can move it, wasn't it?
Councillor Cameron wasn't there. Second on the motion.
I'll do it for you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Loader has moved the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. In the pre-meeting, I asked some questions about this. So can I ask if it's possible to just have an explanation about why the motion has come in this form and why this recommendation is like this rather than just specifically moving the motion, please?
Gentlemen, gentlemen.
You're happy to, you'd like to see if there's any.
That's fine. Okay. Sorry, is anyone from the floor want to speak to this motion as it's already there? Our microphone is going to have to come around. There was nobody was come forward as registered to speak to the motion.
I've missed the memo despite being here for 7 years. For example, I have not received once even an email invitation to a public consultation. So I'd just like to state that as a preamble. But from what I can read, and if anyone could give it a little bit more voce, in other words, make it bigger in the print. If you could amplify that screen, please, if you could increase the text size of the screen. Does that not say the council, in response to the public notice of motion without notice passed at council's annual general meeting 2024, which several people in the gallery were at, reaffirms strategic direction 2. Valuing and protecting our natural environment contained in the Community Strategic Plan 2024 to 34, which is a decade-long plan, and will consider strategic actions 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 and 2.6 when forming policy positions and strategies for the Meander Valley local government area. Now, does that motion not say that at annual general meetings, valuing and protecting our natural environment is necessarily going to be contained in the community strategic plan for the next decade. Is that what that says? Excuse my naivety.
Yeah.
Is that what that says? Because remember, we were talking about particulate matter, which is not dissimilar from dust blowing off unsealed roads, I might hasten to add. And particularly if particulate matter from mining of bauxite, in this case ABX, which was discussed from the gallery at the annual general meeting. And I'd like to give thanks to Councillor. Oh God, I'm getting old. I need a dementia check. My lovely. No, I'll get it. It's all right. I'll drop in a minute. I'd like to give thanks to the councillor who actually moved that we get a vote at the annual general meeting being ratepayers. So I've missed the entire consultation period, but what this is saying is that for the next 10 years, due to the annual general meeting of Councillor Temple, is the man I meant, thank you very much. I'm just getting old, Mr. Temple. Who was the only reason that this council actually heard from the floor.
No. AGMs, we can take motions from the floor at any stage. That's what AGMs.
Yes, but remember we had a question of a vote, and at that point Councillor Temple raised his hands and said at the annual general meeting, doesn't the floor get the vote? And
which was I was coming to, but that's all right.
yeah, well, that's what I was attempting to clarify.
And back to our strategic plan.
So to the strategic plan, so are we, is what you're saying, paraphrased, is what you're saying is that for the next decade.
So, sorry, it's not question time. You're talking to the motion.
By speaking to the motion that it would be useful to consider, given the wind patterns, given the particulate matter, given that we have actually never got an answer in this meeting alone to what the threshold or trigger point is for allocation for roads to be sealed, despite council's.
Please come back to the motion. No, sorry, I've got the chair. So I've asked you to clarify, you're rambling on, to be blunt.
Rambling?
I would actually ask you to finish up. You've made a statement. I asked you to speak to the motion which is in front of us. If you can't speak to the motion.
Clarify what the motion was.
Well, the motion is there in front. Sorry. You're asking a question. You're asked to speak to the motion. I'll actually ask you to sit down, please.
Okay, so we are going to consider particulate matter from bauxite mines.
Sorry, that's not what we're about. That's not what the motion is about.
In the community strategic plan.
Community strategic plan has been put together for the next 10 years, as all community strategic plans are, 10-year period.
Is it first the annual general meeting in 2024?
We have annual general meetings every year.
Yeah, that was in 2024 that we were all here for the bauxite mine.
That's right. But we're not specifically talking about a bauxite mine at the moment.
No, you get that.
I'm not going to enter any more debate. Thank you for your.
It's not fiction.
No, I don't, but it's not a question time. So, sorry. Anyone else wants to speak for the motion or to the motion? Lee? Oh, you're right. You're right. No, he's right. Yeah.
Yes. Can you please clarify with regard to this motion if it's related to the one that I put forward at the annual general meeting?
Yes. Yeah, so we will clarify that for you when we get to the crux of the actual motion. We haven't got a mover and a seconder. We will come to that later. This is about that motion. Absolutely.
No one has moved it yet.
No, not yet. We've asked for, as in normal procedure, when before we get to it, which I stuffed up on today, to be blunt, we actually go any representations and then we go to a mover and a seconder. So we haven't gone to a mover and seconder yet. I've asked for any representation from the floor.
Okay, this is at the representation stage. Okay.
All right. So we are getting to the motion that was moved. But you won't have an option. No, sorry. Once we get into us talking about it, there'll be no other interaction from the gallery. Thank you. Right. Any other further queries from the floor? We'll put the motion. Somebody say I won't put the motion. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second.
Can I ask a point of
You
clarification?
can ask a point of clarification, yes.
Thank you. So just to be clear, if we vote for this, we're not actually voting for the motion that was moved at the AGM. It's a different recommendation. So if this gets lost, can we do an alternative motion and actually move this one? Sorry, the one as was stated out of the AGM.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
so can I foreshadow that?
Can I just say?
No.
Feels there's a little bit of confusion, so I'll just contribute here and feel
Thank you.
free to ask any more questions. So in the agenda item 15.2, annual general meeting report, our council has voted to receive the motions that were formed at our AGM in December, on the 10th of December. So Councillor Loader, in fact, we have already voted to receive the motion that was passed by the majority of electors at our AGM. So I think you mean the motion that was moved by Lee and seconded by Danielle at the AGM. So that has already been received by the council. The motion, the recommendation in 15.3 that is before us is for council to consider that motion. So we have received the motion from the AGM and council is now considering what action that they would feel appropriate from the decision at the AGM. So the motion here that has been formed at the moment, the recommendation is that council, in response to the decision at the AGM, reaffirms our strategic direction 2 from our community strategic plan, which is titled Valuing and Protecting Our Natural Environment. Okay, so that strategic direction was formed with all of that consultation, the feedback, the people that attended our sessions, completed our surveys, that shared their opinion with us. From the decision that was formed at the AGM, we agree that the natural environment is particularly valued by the people of Meander Valley. So we are saying that we have heard that and that our strategic plan has confirmed that as being important for us for the next 10-year period. So the recommendation for council here at the moment is that when we form policy positions and strategies for our Meander Valley area moving forward in the next 10 years, that we take into account the opinion that we have received, which is that valuing and protecting our natural environment is particularly important and something that we should be considering. So in response to the motion that was passed at our AGM, this is our response, that we are providing a commitment to reaffirm the strategic direction in our strategic plan.
Thank you. So, Lee, I was wrong. We already have a move and a second. Sorry, I'm getting confused today. Councillor Loader moved and Councillor Cameron seconded the motion. We've taken that discussion on. Open up for discussion, councillors. Any Councillor House?
I just thank the GM for clarifying that. I wasn't at the AGM, so I just had a little bit of doubt in my own mind about that. Yes, I'll be supporting this as well. I mean, it goes without saying, I think that we all need to affirm our commitment to keeping our environment the very best that we can. So thank you for the clarification. It's cleared up a couple of doubts in my mind. Appreciate it.
Councillor Loader, you want to add anything?
No.
Councillor Cameron? Nothing to add?
No, sorry, I just, again, yeah, so it probably was a, we don't do this every year,
No.
which is probably why it was a little bit confusing, but yes, agree what Councillor House said, and thanks for Councillor Loader for asking, just to clarify the way that works. I guess it can be complicated to understand sometimes what we're voting on when you see this recommendation here. So yeah, I do thank you for clarifying that, GM John, and agree what the previous two speakers have said, so thank you.
Open up for discussion, councillors. Councillor Smedley.
Thank you, and thanks very much for the work that's been undertaken by the community in respect to this matter, and also to the team at council who formulated this recommendation. It's crucially important that we consider a broader policy and strategic setting when we get dealing with these matters, because they are significant. And I think this will help us remain focused on what the whole community requires across the whole municipality. Thank you.
Councillor Temple.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, again, my concern is the word sustainable. There's nothing sustainable about extractive processes by their very nature, and we keep using the word, so I don't know what impact that has on the outcome. I've read the 2.4 again and again and again, but that's the conclusion I come to.
Thanks, Councillor. General Manager.
I just to add, I guess, to Councillor Temple's point there. So our strategic action 2.4, which is referred to in the recommendation, and it states, we embed sustainable practices into our business operations and act to reduce our impacts, including our carbon footprint. So that's a reference to sustainable, I'm assuming, Councillor.
That could just be your admin office.
Right, any other questions, councillors? Councillor Tinfield.
I'd like to make a statement, if I may. I'm probably going to labour over what the General Manager's already said. We're basically here today under the Local Government Act required to respond to the motion that's been put to us at the annual general meeting. We've had other meetings in my time on council and before over things like the protection of agricultural land policy, PAL policy, where public meetings were held under the Act, not general meetings, but held under the Act. And I think on that occasion there were 15 motions from the floor that were either passed unanimously or alternatively without any opposition. And then they came to council the following meeting for a response from council. And many people would say that the response on that occasion was fairly ordinary. But what we're doing here is saying, okay, and we're required under the same Local Government Act to have a 10-year plan for the way forward. So we have only just reviewed that, and late last year we've come to a conclusion as to what that strategic plan should be. Part of the 5 directions, if you like, of that plan is to do with strategic actions 2 point whatever. So they're listed here on page 313, and some of them go to the motion that you've passed at the annual general meeting in a more direct manner than others. Some are just generalistic, but we've listed all the things that might be relevant to what you're asking. So we're not in a sense saying that we're specifically addressing a bauxite mine or any other particular activity. We're saying that in all that we do in the coming 10 years in response to what you've asked us is that we will be looking at these strategic directions as we apply it to any and all matters that come before us. So some matters might have, you might say, might be administrative and have got nothing to do with this particular strategic direction. But to the extent that they are relevant, we've done that recent review, and we will hold that to account as the standard that we apply in addressing whatever things we're doing, building a new road, subdivisions, whatever. We're saying we will take this into account. And yes, and to the extent, again, in terms of a bauxite mine as a particular example, that's a level 2 activity being assessed by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Authority. So a lot of that's outside of our hands. To the extent that we can have some input into those processes and the peripheral things that do come under our purview, roads, etc., we will be looking at these things in determining the way forward. It's how I'd best describe it.
Well said, Councillor.
Yeah, that's good.
Councillor Temple.
So in essence, we're saying that the recommendation will inform how we consider these matters moving forward, not control how we consider these matters moving forward.
It's really out of order, given that the councillors didn't actually understand what the process was going on at the time.
Sorry, I can't take it from the floor. I'm sorry, I can't take it from the floor.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I appreciate it, but I'm just.
Have a chat afterwards, but I can't take it from the floor when the meeting finishes.
Yeah, the councillors didn't actually understand what the process was when you were talking about this motion and asking for comment. How did you expect the people of the floor to understand it and know that they had to speak?
Thanks. Can't answer that question because I can't take it from the floor. Sorry. Any other questions, councillors? So,
That's productive.
rules of engagement, sorry. Councillor Cameron, a second, any date?
Yeah, I guess I'd say, I don't know what to say really, other than it's not that we didn't understand it. I guess it's more a case of clarifying a couple of things because we don't do this. It's not the same every meeting for 12 months. It is different. There's just some clarification around the wording. I think was probably more the way it works. And yeah, I guess it is complicated. We've had AGMs we've been on council for how many years? 6 years, 5 years, and nobody often, no one will come. So it is good to see people engaged and coming along, and I do appreciate that a lot. And I'm sorry if today hasn't felt quite what you were hoping, but again, we're happy to discuss this afterwards if that would be helpful.
Thanks, councillor. Councillor Loden, move the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we had a fairly robust discussion before this meeting about how this worked, and my questions were really to make sure that it was articulated during the meeting so that the gallery could hear too, because it was confusing. So that's why it might sound like we didn't know what we were doing. But I want to acknowledge that this motion moved at the AGM has come out of a deep love and care for this place that we get to call home, Meander Valley. That's where it springs from, and a deep desire to protect this environment. I know that here in Westbury, with all the developments that are coming on board, I have more paddy melons, I have more bandicoots in my backyard than I've ever had because our urban wildlife is being displaced. And this here is a deep desire to make sure that this place we call home is looked after now for us to enjoy and live in, but also for the future. And I particularly want to highlight 2.5 and 2.6. I think that's really what this motion is about, that our planning services ensure appropriate development which protects and enhances the natural and built environment and safeguards cultural heritage. In this case, it's about the natural environment. And 2.6, we value our environment, recognising how it benefits us and commit to protecting ecosystem function and balance. So I don't have any hesitation to support this motion.
Thanks, councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. That is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, page 315, 15.4, new policy number 4, governance charter. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Cameron, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Loder.
Oh, no, Councillor House.
Oh, Councillor House. Councillor Cameron, remove the motion.
Thank you. Yeah, we've worked on this item a couple of times as well. And I know that our council might have had some reservations around it, and I really do understand that. But I do think that the best thing about our council is there's 9 of us most of the time. We don't always get on. We don't all have the same thoughts or feelings or projects we're passionate about. But I do think when we come together, we are really strong and respectful. We're here as a team, and I do feel that strong sense of teamwork with my fellow councillors. And I am really confident that we can work together. We all have the same shared values. We all want what's best for our community. And I do think that some of these things it's good to have these friendly reminders every now and then, because It can get pretty heated around the discussion table here, and but yeah, I think we're a really good, dedicated bunch of councillors, and again, we don't always get on, but we're here for the right reasons. So it's not. I appreciate the work that's gone into this, and I'm very happy to support it.
Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Cameron. That's exactly the way I see it too. Unlike you and maybe others around this table, I'm a relatively new councillor. I'm a bit over 2 years in. So I see this as being a real opportunity for newer councillors, as we all are at some point, to really understand what's required. I can understand that people have been on council sometimes saying, might be a bit prescriptive or maybe stating the obvious. But it's quite, I think it's when you first come onto council, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of procedures to learn, a lot of procedural stuff and legislation, but also the role of councillors and how we interact. And I think this spells it out very clearly for the new councillors in particular. I think it's a very worthwhile policy to have. And yes, I will be supporting it also.
Thanks, Councillor. Open up to discussion and questions, councillors. No.
I just comment, I've already articulated the reasons earlier on in the meeting why I wouldn't be supporting this, and I maintain those. I've also said in the meeting, and so to re-articulate that, the state government is working through this in terms of legislating the Good Governance Guide, which is 100 and something pages long. They're in the process of doing that. I don't think we needed to act ahead of that. And they themselves in their background document identified problems with that this policy to some extent goes to making the general manager, and it's no reflection on the current general manager, but it goes to the extent of, to some extent, making the general manager the boss, for want of a better term, of individual councillors, whilst they at the same time are collectively the boss of the general manager. And the government acknowledged that was an issue and then just went on, wouldn't say ignored it, but just moved on without providing an answer to it. And to me, that's an insurmountable problem. I don't believe that other levels of government have that same interaction. There are all sorts of mechanisms by way of integrity commissions and ombudsmans to deal with the thing, and I just think the approach taken here, as I say, is counterintuitive to the simplification of the customer service charter, where we've got a thou shalt list that's longer than Ben-Hur, and so I won't be supporting.
Yep, I just wanted to clarify one point that Councillor Sinfield made there. I think the comment made was that this policy would make the GM be responsible. I just wanted to say that those responsibilities already exist under the WHS Act, so the policy isn't creating something that doesn't already exist.
Councillor Lola.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I must admit, when I read it, I felt it was a little bit fluffy. I think I might use the word, that we all work together and it sounded a little bit like a basketball team, really, because we do have some pretty robust legislation we have to work to. That all sounded like I wasn't going to support it. After discussions at workshops, I will support it, but I still feel that some of them are a bit fluffy. Like a long time ago, I used to be a Girl Guide leader, and we had 10 laws we had to abide by, and this is sort of a little bit like that. But I particularly like, we come prepared and willing to contribute in meetings. That's my favourite. So I will be supporting it.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, I'll be supporting this as well, because even though there's a long list of things there, these things should come naturally to us. Anybody with good common sense that is prepared to sit and listen and debate and be respectful of others sitting around the table should look at that and go, yep, I do that even without a checklist. So happy to support that going forward. And sometimes we can't have grey areas. We've got to have I's dotted and T's crossed, as we did with our customer one. So this is just part of it. And as far as the government coming up with their own, that may be 2 years' time. And in the meantime, we will have the void. So happy to support this and thank the staff for putting it together. And I think it helps the GM as well going forward. So that's my view. Moving on, any other discussion, councillors, comments? If not, councillor House is the second. Or anything to add?
No, nothing.
Councillor Cameron's the mover.
I need to say that I read it and I do think that the 9 of us and the others that have been here before have always practiced these
Nearly.
most of the time. And yeah, like councillor House says, we've had a few changes and a new councillor coming along. It does help. So yeah, very, very happy to support it.
Put the motion, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Johnson, Cameron, Smedley, Loader, House against. Campbell and Sinfield, thank you. We may have a short break, which allows those in the gallery that want to leave to. We're going to adjourn for 5 minutes to do it technically. So those that don't want to wish in the gallery can go. Those that want to get a drink or a stretch, please do so.
I can do both. I've been texting thinking flat out, isn't it? It's really exciting. You need to get it. Oh. That's how good I'm doing.
How's that week?
Either, I haven't had any.
Right, okay. Page 323, 15.5. Review of policy number 76. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second that one, please. House, thank you. Councillor Cameron, thank you. Councillor House, has moved the motion.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, it just seems straightforward to me, having read through it. It seems to be pretty balanced and well considered. I don't have really anything to speak to. I think the objectives in point 2 are pretty clear. So I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Nothing to add, happy to support it.
Open up for discussion, questions, councillors? Nothing? No questions? Okay, with the motion, all those in favour, please say aye, raise your hand. That is unanimous, thank you. Page 334, review of policy number 87, which is the Hadsman Urban Growth Area Development. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Anybody? Councillor Cameron, thank you. Medley, thank you. Councillor Cameron as mover.
No, I am happy to accept it as read. Thank you.
Councillor Medley, nothing to add. Open up for discussion, councillors. Take it as read. Put the motion, all those in favour? They are, raise your hands. Unanimous, thank you. Page 343, 15.7, removal of policy number 93. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second.
Hang on, Mr.
Sorry.
That's great.
I've got it in front of me easy. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second. Councillor Cameron. Seconder, please. Councillor House, or you're close, Councillor Temple. Councillor Cameron is mover.
Yeah, happy to take advice. It says it hasn't been used in 15 years, which I think is a clear indication that we don't need to continue it.
Thank you. Councillor House is the seconder.
Well, yeah, I concur, but let's keep it simple. It's not being used. Just another policy that people have to sort of look at and amend and all that kind of stuff. So not being used, no need to have it, in my view.
Thank you. Open up discussion, councillors. No discussion. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye, raise your hand. Unanimous again. Thank you. Page 348, 15.8. Uni grants and sponsorship 2024-25, round 3. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second. Councillor House. Yeah, sorry, got you. Councillor Loader. Thank you. Councillor House has moved the motion.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, as part of that committee, I'd like to thank all those people involved, including Councillor Loader in this case. We had a good discussion about this prior to the meeting, and it's probably fair to say that we need a little bit of clarification going forward on some of these matters. However, can I make the point, and I think you'd concur, Councillor Loader, that each one of these applications is very well considered. There's a lot of information provided to us, the background to it with Alison and others, and Nate getting a lot of information on board so that we can make a measured decision. I think that's what we do to the best of our ability. Do we always get it right? I'm not sure we get it right every time, but I think generally we give it the very best opportunity we can. I thank all those people that make applications, and invariably what it does is reinforce to me how many people in the community are out there trying to do great things. And whilst not everyone gets their request agreed to, we thank them for that, for the fact that they do apply. And again, I think going forward, we might need to sort of relook at some of the dollar values on some of these things. I don't think inflation has really been looked at with some areas here, but I would recommend this to my fellow councillors.
Councillor Loader as the second motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councillor House. There was a lot of reading for this particular grant round, and I want to thank the staff for making the format easy for us and getting it to us ahead of time. There were robust discussions on the day about the purpose for the grants, and I feel quite comfortable and happy to be recommending this this motion to be passed today. I particularly want to note and thank the General Manager for those grants and sponsorship that he made under delegation, one of which, of course, was the Parkham Festival of Small Holes. It's great that we've got that mechanism so that if something comes up between grant rounds, groups don't miss out, that we can be agile and respond to need. So I recommend this for passing.
Ms. Councillor General Manager.
I was just going to say, in response to some points that Councillor House made, the community grants and sponsorships policy and guidelines are actually currently under review, including consultation with the committee. So when Councillor House talked about indexation and the stated dollar values within that policy, they're currently being reviewed in this current quarter. So that's good.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you. Yes, this is my first time not at this committee meeting officially. I've been on that committee for however long I've been on council, and it is my favourite part. It was my favourite part.
No, today is your favourite part.
But I do know it is in good hands now with Councillor Loader and Councillor Smidley and Councillor House participating in it. But I think I say every time how much I love it and how much I appreciate the work that the staff do, because Councillor House is right. There's a lot of information that goes into this. There's a lot of background information, a lot of follow-up, a lot of repeat follow-up, a lot of information. And I do really appreciate that, because that does help make our job a lot easier. And I have seen a couple of line items on here that I have seen before, and I guess without going into them all individually, and because I'm not on the committee, so I don't get all the background information that I love, would the General Manager just confirm for me then, please, do they all fit within the guidelines that are in place currently that we are looking to review?
Yep, I sure can, Deputy Mayor. So in the agenda item, I actually, when I was reviewing the information provided from the council staff that are supporting the committee, I guess I have just added a couple of points throughout the agenda report where I have viewed there to be some level of inconsistency with the guidelines. So I can provide some examples. The Deloraine Rotary Club and Palm are working on a project for an event. So the Deloraine District's Pony Club are working on an annual camp. The Tasmanian Tomato and Garlic Festival are working on an event, and the Eudaimonia, sorry if I got that wrong, cycling tour are working on an event. And I guess from my reading of the current guidelines, that those projects are not new projects or new activities, so therefore don't meet the current guidelines as they're stated. However, that doesn't prohibit council from forming a decision to support those grants and sponsorships should they choose to. I guess I'm just providing my advice that it doesn't seem to comply with the current guidelines, but the recommendation from the Community Grants Committee, who have considered all of the supporting information for those applications, have put them forward for recommendation.
Thanks, General Manager.
Thank you.
I open up for discussions, councillors. I guess, yeah, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the past, I had thought that stating the project cost was mandatory, otherwise your application wouldn't be considered. So I'm surprised that one there hasn't got a project cost. It's got a global round figure. And I had thought that you had to show exactly how that was going to be spent, and then yes, I'm just, I would have thought in the past we'd have rejected something like that, and this time we're accepting it, or on the verge of accepting it. So the clarity there would help.
Can I just ask which item, Councillor?
It's cycling tour.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so as Councillor Temple has pointed out, the cycling tour, they have put forward a request to council for sponsorship of their event, and unless the Manager of Community Wellbeing has received any supplementary information from the organisers of that event, as in the overall cost. That's correct, councillor. I don't believe that we have it currently on file. So, you know, I guess if that is particularly important for you informing your decision, I guess we can follow it up with the event organisers. But I believe there is also some time pressure around that particular sponsorship request, and that they need a response from council. So I believe that the decision does need to be made today, but we can follow that up for you should you like us to.
I can make a comment. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess the distinction would be that, yeah, a community grant application would require a project budget. And a sponsorship, it's not necessarily a standard practice for asking for the cost of the project.
Councillor Smedley.
With the mic, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to the Garlic and Tomato Festival, that's obviously an event, as is the New Horizons activity, and then the Unimita one, which in my memory as well, obviously these events are coming back to receive funding on annual basis almost. Is that correct? And if that's the case, does that meet the guideline?
You're correct, councillor. So the New Horizons Great Western Tier Cycling Challenge is a recurring event. I've recently spoken with Manager Community Wellbeing and Community Wellbeing Officer about council considering that being funded from a separate budget area when council goes to form their budget in June this year. So that'll be part of our discussions in workshop coming up. The Tomato and Garlic Festival is slightly different because, well, it has been viewed different on this occasion. Council has previously provided sponsorship grants, community grants towards the group. The policy and the guidelines have changed. They're reviewed at least every 4 years, and sometimes they're reviewed earlier. So I guess there's been different policies in place at different points in time when they've applied for grants. However, the organising group for that event has also changed. I believe it was in early 2024 that a different structure was formed for the organising committee. So they're an incorporated group, whereas I don't believe that was the case previously. So I believe that the organising group for that event has changed. So while the event is here again, the organisers are different, but I'm not sure, Al, if that's...
Yep, and they're holding it at Crombie Estate, which previously they held it on their private property. Annette Reid. Oh. I need to. Yeah, so previously it was, do I need to say that again? You're right.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think there might have been a third that you mentioned there. That was two, I think you might have.
The cycle. The professional cycle tour.
So the cycling events
type things have been funded in the past.
Once or twice. That's quite an infrequent event. For Meander Valley, at least, it may be held annually in other parts of the state. But for Meander Valley, I don't think that council has supported it in recent times. So I know that we have supported it in the past, but I feel as though not within the last 5 years. But no, to not sure if there's anything to add to that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not really. I haven't, it's been up for discussion before, but I don't think it's made council. I guess the big reason for this one is that 2 of the 4 stages are Meander Valley centric. So I guess it's an opportunity for, it's obviously particularly relevant to Meander Valley for this year. Yeah.
Councillor
Just somewhere in the grey matter, I seem to recall we supported a Criterion event in Westbury back in the days of former Councillor King, because she helped MC said event, I think, from memory.
We did.
Part of it.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was around 2015, councillor, so it is quite a while ago now. We were more involved on that occasion, as you say, because it involved road closures. I think that we also had another occasion where we provided financial support, and they may have started the league in Deloraine. So there's a couple that I can recall.
Councillor House.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a quick question, maybe just to reiterate with the sponsorship with the cycling, what sort of branding would we get? And what are we looking at doing?
So for the discussion that occurred with the committee, the committee definitely identified that in terms of sponsoring that, we all agreed that the jersey categories was the one that we chose, and the polka dot jersey, which was the hill climb classification. So that would mean that the Meander Valley Council logo would go on that jersey, that exposure. So that was what we came up with. Yeah.
You good? Any other discussion, Councillor Loder? No, sorry. Any other discussion, councillors? From my point of view, we have some items here that probably don't tick the box. So we're going to look at the box coming forward by the sound of it. And we've got a committee that's made recommendations to us, and they've done all the work for us. They've looked at it and made the recommendations to us. So I cannot go against their recommendations. And Councillor Loder is second on the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you for the robust discussion that we've just had about council sponsorship and grants. It will be good to see the review, and I can only imagine how much work that's going to be for council staff. In regard to the cycle, the Western Tiers Cycle Challenge, how do we say that? Eudaimonia.
I think that's
right.
Spot on, yeah.
The main thing that appealed to me and why I spoke for it is that it's going to create an influx of visitors into our area. And just today I heard some stats about visitors to parks, our big parks like Cradle and Freycinet, and visitor numbers are down. So anything that we can do to support our visitor economy and help people come in and experience how fabulous this area is, I think is a dollar well spent. And you can only imagine that people who come for that cycling tour will fall in love with the place and come back for another holiday, maybe more, you never know. So that was the rationale why I was 100% behind that particular one. But I do thank everybody for the discussion. It's important to understand why we do what we do as a council and sponsor the different events. And also, of course, we've got a number of sports people that we are supporting, and I would like to congratulate them for getting to that level in their area of expertise and wish them well.
Thank you. Councillor House is the mover of the motion.
Yeah, what Councillor Loder said pretty much. I agree with all of that. And I think with events, let's say we're just talking about the cycling, for example, but it doesn't matter whether it's a golf event or whatever it is. It's very hard to quantify what repeat and referral comes from that. Now, sometimes it's just someone comes into an area, they've never been here before, and they choose to come back. And you can just never really quantify exactly how often that happens. But I think it's very important we do these things to get the branding out there and to bring people into our municipality. So you're very supportive of that one as well. But again, yes, thank you for the robust discussion about this. It is a reasonably lengthy discussion we have as a meeting, for sure. So again, finally, thank you to all the work that's been done behind the scenes, because there is considerable work, dozens and dozens and dozens of phone calls and that type of thing I expect. So well done and thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
And against? That's Johnson, Cameron, Smedley, Sinfield, Loder, House was for, Councillor Temple against. Infrastructure Services paid 378. Yep. We'd like to move, somebody like to second. Sorry, please second 8.
378, shut the gate. Road crossing. Yes, vehicle crossing.
Second up, please. Councillor Cameron. Councillor Smedley and Councillor Cameron.
Thank you for this. Funnily enough, people ask me about vehicle crossings often, ish, and whose responsibility it is to put them in and maintain them, all those sorts of things. So appreciate you updating this, Dave. Great job.
Well done.
He said
Okay,
he wanted
thank
to
you.
compliment.
Open up for discussion, councillors. Councillor Tibble.
They do actually ask me about vehicle crossings. That wasn't too sarcastic, sorry. No.
He's choked up.
My question is, what happens when a crossing falls into disrepair many years down the track and the owner isn't doing anything about it? What's the process? Meaning it's unsightly and etc.
Through you, Chair, Council's asset management team conduct regular inspections of the road network and also footpaths. So those defects would be picked up at the time and communicated with the property owners to discuss for their remedy.
Yep. So the footpath is the responsibility of council. So is it the part that crosses the nature strip is the responsibility of the landowner, or how does it actually work?
It's a dual purpose. So the vehicular crossing is from the edge of the road to the property boundary, and that's the primary responsibility of the property owner. Council's footpath does need to traverse the driveways as well, so it's part of the condition assessment. There is instances where the footpath will cross through the driveway, but that's giving priority to the footpath construction.
No questions, councillors? No comments? Could talk about a zebra crossing, but we haven't got any wild in there going, so on. Anything else? If not,
well, yeah, I've just got to say it's curious that we mow and maintain nature strips in the Meander Valley, but we don't maintain driveway or crossings to the boundary.
Yeah, works manager would probably be happy if we didn't maintain.
And other municipalities, neighbouring municipalities don't mow nature or maintain the nature.
Oh, they all want to be part of the Meander Valley?
Do you have something, comment there? Okay. Something for a workshop discussion potentially, councillor. I'll put them back to Councillor Cameron in a second or anything like that. Right. Councillor Smith, put the motion, all those in favour, please raise your hand. That is unanimous, thank you. Highway dedication, page 383, 17.1, highway dedication, Diners Lane, Wagina. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Cameron, second, Councillor Loader, thank you. Councillor Cameron, any comments?
Look, this is a little bit different to what we would used to be receiving at council, so maybe the chair might give a brief explanation of why we're seeing this in front of us, but I am happy to support it.
Happy to provide a bit more context, councillor. So the Diners Lane area there that's identified to be recognised as a public highway maintainable by council was discussed at a council meeting, at a council workshop some years ago. I'm going to say it was around 2017, 2018 in that period, and there was an opinion, an agreement from the General Manager and the Director of Corporate Infrastructure Services of the day, who aren't with us any longer, that this road extension would be fulfilled. But it was probably an oversight from that period that they didn't have the agreement, a formal council decision, and a gazetting of that fact. So I guess we are working towards formalising that similarly that we have done with some others more recently. So we believe that the position that was formed back then is correct and current, and we're just working to rectify the map and to reflect that.
We good? Open for discussion, councillors. Oh, sorry, councillor Lady, haven't spoken, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I see it as just tidying things up and something logical to do, even though it's only a short stretch of road. So I'm supporting it.
Thank you. Open up for discussion, councillors. Nope. Nothing to add. Councillor Lady, any further to add? No. Councillor Cameron.
No, thank you very much.
Motion, all those in favour, please say aye, raise your hand. Unanimous, thank you. All right, motion to close the meeting to the public. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second. Councillor Cameron.
House.
Yeah. Right. Councillor Cameron. For the motion, all those in favour, please say aye, raise your hand. That is unanimous again. Please end live streaming and the recordings are off. We can go into closed sessions at 5 p.m.
Must have been already half an hour.